The knock came just after sunrise. Soft, unsure, almost hesitant, but enough to jolt Megan upright from the couch where she'd dozed off again in last night's clothes. Her phone said, 6:12 a.m. The neighborhood was still cloaked in pale blue quiet, the world not yet awake, and her mind, still heavy from sleep, registered it as maybe a package delivery, maybe a neighbor, maybe some leftover chaos from her ex-husband's forgotten debts. She tugged her cardigan around her and opened the front door, expecting to see nothing at all, but instead, there on the porch, sat a small woven bassinet. Inside it, a baby, not older than 3 or 4 months, wrapped in a pale yellow blanket, hands curled into soft fists and eyes wide open, blinking up at her with an unsettling calm. Megan froze. Her breath caught. It didn't feel real. She scanned the street. Empty. No car pulling away. No shadow darting around the corner. Just the baby. Alone. Quiet, as if placed there by the morning air itself. For a long moment, she didn't move. The baby gurgled gently, and her eyes finally dropped to the paper tucked between folds of the blanket. A note. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, afraid the message would vanish like a dream if she blinked too hard. It was handwritten, ink slightly smudged, 6 words at the top in looping script. You're the only one I trust. Megan's chest constricted. She read on. His name is Jacob. Please take care of him. I don't have anyone else. You do. That was it. No signature, no explanation. Just a baby on a porch and a plea wrapped in heartbreak. She stepped backward into the house, bassinet in her arms, door swinging shut behind her with a soft thud. The baby, Jacob, let out a coo. Not a cry. Not yet. Her kitchen still smelled like burnt toast from the night before, a half-eaten meal she'd abandoned after a text from her ex had reopened wounds she'd barely stitched closed. Divorce had felt like an ending. But this baby in her arms, felt like an entirely different kind of beginning. She laid him gently on the couch, checked his limbs, his warmth, his breathing. Everything seemed healthy. Clean diaper, fresh onesie. Whoever left him had cared enough to prepare him for wherever he might land. But why her? She wasn't on any list. She wasn't fostering. Her teenage daughter was off at her father's for the week. And until that knock, Megan had spent the last year convincing herself that being needed was a chapter already closed. She read the note again. You're the only one I trust. The words pressed into her like fingerprints. She should have called the police. That was the responsible thing. She even reached for the phone. But she hesitated. Something about the baby's steady eyes. Something about the handwriting. It stirred something she hadn't felt in years, like an old echo. Trust. That word again. Who trusted her now? No one, she thought. Except... She looked again at the note. The loops, the tilt of the letters. It nagged at her, tugged at the edge of memory. Someone she once knew? She folded it slowly and tucked it into her pocket, then lifted Jacob back into her arms. He sighed against her shoulder. Not afraid, not abandoned, not anymore. Megan exhaled shakily and whispered into the morning light. Okay, baby boy, let's find out who you are and why you ended up here. The folded note wouldn't leave her alone. Megan had read it 10 times by the time the sun rose high enough to send golden streaks across the living room floor. She'd placed Jacob in her daughter's old bassinet, wiped down and stored in the hallway closet. And now he slept peacefully like he belonged there. But the note sat in her hand like a stone, the ink still faintly scented with something floral, maybe lavender or a hand lotion she couldn't place. You're the only one I trust. The loops on the Y, the narrow slant of the T's, It tugged at something in the back of her mind. A memory not yet formed. A voice that hadn't been heard in years. Megan didn't have many people left in her life who would use the word trust and mean it. Her mother had died 5 years ago. Her sister lived 3 states away and hadn't called since Christmas. Friends had drifted after the divorce like leaves after a storm, unsure which way to blow. She took a photo of the letter and sent it to Liz, her closest remaining friend. Really more of a work acquaintance, but kind. "Does this handwriting look familiar to you?" "Something about it is bugging me." She waited, pacing the kitchen, sipping reheated coffee as if it could settle the rising questions in her chest. When the reply came, it was quick. "Looks feminine. Older? Not your daughter, right? Could it be Jonah's ex? Or that woman from the shelter you volunteered with?" Megan stared at the screen. The shelter. She hadn't thought of that in months. For 3 years she'd helped at a local women's shelter on Tuesday nights, folding laundry, sorting donations, talking softly with women who had nothing left to give but their names and stories. There had been one girl, Eva. Quiet, sharp-eyed, always sitting near the door with her newborn in her arms, refusing to give the baby up but never asking for help. They'd bonded briefly. Megan had slipped her food. Books. One night she even brought a heating pad from home after Eva complained of back pain. And then one day, Eva was gone. No goodbye. No note. Megan had thought about her from time to time, wondered what had happened. The baby would be about 4 months old now. She grabbed her phone again and pulled up old emails from the shelter. Eventually, she found it. Eva's intake form. No last name, but the handwriting matched. Identical loops. The slant of the D. The way she dotted the I with a tiny circle. It wasn't a guess anymore. It was her. Eva had left her baby, Jacob, with Megan. But why? Megan's hands trembled slightly as she looked toward the bassinet. The baby stirred, stretched, then settled again. Her heart ached. He was beautiful, calm, trusting. She didn't know what scared her more, that someone had dropped him off like a bundle of mail, or that it made sense to her heart, that she already felt the instinct to keep him safe. She called the shelter. The director answered after 3 rings, her voice warm but distracted. Megan didn't waste time. "Do you remember Eva? Young, maybe 21? Short hair, always kept to herself?" The woman paused. "Of course. She left 4 months ago. Why?" "She left a baby on my doorstep this morning," Megan said. "No signature, just a note. I think it's her son." The line went still. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "Yes, the baby's okay. Clean, well cared for. But I think she's in trouble." The director hesitated. "Eva had no family, no backup. We tried everything. Social services, long-term housing. She was terrified of something but wouldn't tell us what. Disappeared right after someone showed up asking too many questions." "Someone?" Megan's heart pounded. "Who?" "We never got a name. Just a man. Not the baby's father," she said. "But he scared her." Megan looked at Jacob, now shifting in his sleep. Whatever Eva had run from, she hadn't just trusted anyone. She had trusted Megan. Chosen her. A woman she barely knew, but one who had once brought her tea and told her that being tired didn't mean being weak. Megan whispered, "She left him with me for a reason." "What are you going to do?" the director asked. Megan swallowed hard. "I'm going to protect him, and I'm going to find her." After hanging up, she pulled out a notepad and began writing down everything she remembered about Eva. The way she'd spoken, the small town she'd mentioned once, the tattoo on her wrist she always covered with a bandage. She wasn't a detective. She didn't have resources. but she had a heart that had been broken and re-glued too many times to be scared off now. Jacob stirred again and let out a tiny cry. Megan moved toward him instinctively, lifting him with gentle arms. "You're safe," she whispered, "and I swear, I'm not going to let you fall through the cracks." As she rocked him near the window, something new settled in her chest. Not panic, not confusion, but purpose. By the time Megan pulled into the parking lot of the women's shelter, the late afternoon sun had turned the brick walls a soft orange, and Jacob was asleep in the back seat, his tiny fingers curled around the edge of his blanket. She hadn't planned to come this soon. Hadn't planned anything, really. But the moment she put down the phone earlier that morning, something inside her clicked into place. The part of her that used to spring into action as a mother, as a wife, as a woman who'd once kept entire worlds running while quietly falling apart. Now, she had another world in her care, wrapped in yellow cotton and trust. She left the car running with the AC low and the windows cracked, parking close to the entrance. She stepped into the shelter and was immediately met with the familiar smell of hand soap, microwaved leftovers, and something softer, like weary hope. A volunteer at the front desk looked up. "Can I help you?" Megan nodded. "I'm looking for any information you might have on Eva. She stayed here earlier this year. Short hair, about 21, left suddenly in March." The woman tilted her head. "You're with social services?" "No," Megan said honestly. "She left her baby on my doorstep yesterday morning. I think she trusted me to keep him safe." That was all it took. The woman stood, went to the back, and returned with a manila folder. She didn't leave much. Fake last name, no listed emergency contact. But there was one thing she mentioned during intake. Something about Douglas. Megan blinked. Douglas? A small town about 40 miles east. She said she hated it, but her whole life was there. Megan flipped through the file, saw notes from a counselor, trauma response consistent with long-term isolation, possible coercion, refuses to discuss father of child. Her chest tightened. Eva had run from something more than poverty. Possibly abuse. Possibly worse. Megan copied the address she'd listed, an abandoned P.O. box at a mini-mart in Douglas. "Do you know if anyone else ever came looking for her?" The volunteer nodded. "One man. Said he was her cousin. Tall, early 40s, wore a leather jacket in July. But he gave off a weird vibe. Eva locked herself in the bathroom after he left." Megan's stomach turned. "Do you have a security photo?" The volunteer hesitated. "We wipe camera data every 90 days. Megan knew she was chasing shadows, but she couldn't stop now. Back in the car, Jacob stirred. She reached behind her seat and gently tucked the blanket around him again. He yawned, one hand brushing the side of his head like he already carried the weight of someone else's choices. Megan whispered, "We're going to find her, sweetheart. We're going to bring your mother home." She drove to Douglas with her heart pounding in her throat. The town was small. One blinking light at the main intersection, a diner with torn vinyl booths, and a convenience store that still sold DVDs in a rack by the door. She parked and went inside. The clerk behind the counter barely looked up. "Need something?" Megan smiled politely. "Actually, I'm looking for someone. She used to have a P.O. box here. Name was Eva. Young girl, short hair, maybe 20, came in once or twice a month." The clerk blinked slowly. "We don't give out box owner info." "I'm not asking for her address," Megan said. "She left her baby at my door. I'm not the police. I'm someone she trusted. I just want to make sure she's okay." That changed something. The man exhaled. "You didn't hear it from me, but she used to pick up mail with an older guy. Never spoke, always looked down. The last time she came in, she had a bruise on her cheek. When I asked about it, he pulled her away and said she slipped. That was March. Megan's heart pounded. Did you ever see her again? Nope, not since then, but there's a trailer park just east of town. Word is she used to stay with a guy there. Lot number 12? Megan drove slowly, eyes scanning every trailer number. She stopped in front of a faded blue unit with a tarp over one window and an overgrown lawn. Number 12. She didn't get out of the car, just sat, watching, unsure what she'd even do if someone opened the door. Would Eva be there? Would she even want to be found? After 5 minutes, an older woman appeared on the porch next door, watering a row of potted flowers. Megan stepped out. Hi, she called gently. Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for someone who might have stayed here a few months back. Her name's Eva. Young girl. Had a baby. The woman lowered her watering can. She's not here anymore. Left in the middle of the night back in March. Cops came by asking questions later, but no one knew much. Was she with someone? A man, the woman said, eyes narrowing. Didn't like the way he grabbed her arm, like she wasn't real. But one night she ran. I saw it. Backpack, no car. She took the baby and just vanished. Megan swallowed hard. Did she ever say where she might go? The woman hesitated. Just once. She said, if I ever disappear, tell them I'm going where no one looks twice. That's all. Megan returned to the car, shaken but focused. She didn't have Eva's location yet. But she had something else now. Proof that she had run. Proof that she had been scared. And more than anything, proof that she had tried. And that, Megan decided, was enough to keep going. The child welfare office smelled like worn carpet and dry coffee filters, and Megan sat in the waiting area for nearly 40 minutes before someone called her name. Jacob slept on her chest in a soft sling, his tiny mouth slack with milk-drunk peace, while Megan's fingers nervously traced the folded note in her pocket for the 100th time. It had taken everything in her not to panic when the clerk at the front desk asked if she was here to surrender the baby. No, she'd said firmly. He's not abandoned. He was placed with me, intentionally. I believe his mother is in danger. The social worker's name was Deanna. She had kind eyes, a tired voice, and a clipboard that seemed to weigh more than it should. She led Megan into a small meeting room and motioned toward the 2 metal chairs. So, she began, tell me what happened. Start from the beginning. Megan did. She told her about the knock, the note, the shelter connection, and the visit to Douglas. She showed the letter, the shelter's intake, copy of Eva's handwriting, and Jacob's diaper bag, the only item left with him, still filled with formula, spare onesies, and a single photo of Eva holding him in a hospital bed. Deanna listened without interrupting, but her pen moved slowly across the page. When Megan finished, she took a deep breath. I know I should have called the police first. I didn't want him to end up in the system, not if I could find her first. Deanna looked up. You have no legal relation to the baby? Number none. Then technically, Jacob qualifies as a foundling. But... She paused. This is a rare case. The fact that there's a note, and the clear care taken in leaving him, this was not abandonment in the traditional sense. This was desperation. Megan nodded slowly. And trust. Yes, Deanna said. Which brings us to a very complicated question. What now? Can you help me find her? Megan asked. I know I'm just a stranger in this, but I can't ignore what she left with me. Deanna tapped her pen against the clipboard. There's one name that came up months ago. It wasn't Eva's real name. It was a contact she'd written on a form during intake, then scratched out. It was only there for a day before it got purged from the record. I happened to jot it down because it rang a bell. Megan leaned forward. What name? Hollis Bray. Megan blinked. I've never heard of him. He used to run a transitional housing site out past Tucson, Deanna explained. Supposedly closed down 2 years ago, but there were rumors that certain rooms kept being used. Not legally, and not safely. You think she was there? Maybe. Or maybe he's the reason she ran. Deanna stood and rummaged through a filing cabinet, returning with a yellowed contact sheet. He had a post office box, still active. You'll need to let us take over at this point. Megan hesitated. I understand, but if I turn Jacob over now, where does he go? Deanna looked at her gently. He'll be placed in emergency foster care until we locate next of kin or his mother. It's not a guarantee he stays with you, even if you petition for temporary custody. Megan's throat closed. He's only known me since she left him. He doesn't cry in my arms. He sleeps in my daughter's old bassinet. He has a rhythm here. I believe you, Deanna said, and I can tell you care. But the system has protocols. We have to protect him legally, not just emotionally. Megan stared at the floor. Can I keep him just a few more days? While you make the first move on Hollis Bray? Deanna hesitated. I'll have to clear it with my supervisor. But if you're willing to file for emergency guardianship, we can expedite the paperwork. I'll do whatever it takes. As Megan left the building, clutching the temporary forms to her chest with Jacob nestled close to her heart, she felt the gravity of the moment settle over her. She had just stepped into something far more complex than a mystery left on a doorstep. This was becoming a legal battle, a rescue mission, a vow. She buckled Jacob into the car seat with gentle hands and whispered, I don't know who Hollis Bray is, but I swear to you, I will find out, and I'll keep you safe, even if no one else ever shows up for you again. She drove back to the cottage slowly, her mind spinning with names, places, the flickering memory of Eva's eyes at the shelter. Wide, scared, hopeful. If Bray had hurt her, if he had anything to do with why she ran, Megan would expose it. And if Eva was still out there, scared and hiding, Megan would find her. Because someone had to choose the hard road for love. Someone had to be the safe place in a world full of danger. And maybe, just maybe, that someone was her. The address Deanna gave her wasn't much of an address, just a crossroads out past Tucson, a patch of dry earth where the asphalt bled into gravel, and a row of trailers that looked forgotten by every agency that ever issued a permit. Megan sat in her car with the engine running, the heat shimmering across the windshield, and stared at the trailer marked number 6. No doorbell. No mailbox. Just a battered steel door bolted top and bottom, a broken screen hanging sideways, and a window sealed with cardboard and duct tape. It had the look of a place meant to be invisible. She wasn't sure what she expected. A sign, a face, some kind of presence, but there was nothing. Just the sound of wind dragging dust across the yard. Jacob was with a neighbor she trusted, asleep in his bassinet, and Megan had driven the 2 hours with nothing but a water bottle and the note Eva had left, now soft-edged and wrinkled from being read too many times. She approached the trailer slowly. Each step made her heartbeat louder. At the door, she knocked, not too hard, not too soft. Waited. Knocked again. Silence. A curtain twitched behind the side window, and her breath caught. Someone was inside. "Hello?" she called. "I'm not a cop. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just looking for a girl named Eva. She stayed at the shelter downtown. She left a baby with me." Still nothing. Megan swallowed and pulled the note from her pocket, holding it up like proof. "She trusted me. Please, if you know where she is, she might be in danger." Another silence, this one longer, then a click, soft but distinct. The bottom bolt slid open, Another. Then the door cracked an inch, and a man's face appeared in the shadow. Thin, sun-worn skin, eyes like riverbed rocks, dull and unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Are you Hollis Bray?" Megan asked. He didn't answer, just opened the door wider. "Inside, 5 minutes." She hesitated, then stepped in. The air inside was dry and stale, like old smoke and closed doors. The room was dim, blinds drawn, only a single bulb over the sink flickering overhead. It wasn't dirty exactly, but it felt like no one had really lived there in a long time. Hollis sat in a wooden chair near a cluttered table and motioned for her to sit opposite. "Eva's gone," he said. "Has been." Megan sat. "Gone where?" "Took off in March, middle of the night. I woke up and she was gone. Baby, too." "So she was here," Megan said, tightening her grip on the edge of the table. "Why?" Hollis shrugged. "She needed a place. I give people places." "And what do you take in return?" she asked, more sharply than she meant. Hollis didn't flinch. "Nothing from her. She was scared. Not of me, of someone else." Megan narrowed her eyes. "Who?" "Man named Luther. Used to be with her mother. Long history. I don't ask questions I don't want answered. But when he came sniffing around, she spooked bad." "Did she say where she'd go?" "Just said she had one name she trusted. Didn't tell me. Just said if something ever happened, she'd find her again." Megan's heart jolted. "Me? Maybe. Or someone like you, I don't know. She left her baby with me. A boy. Jacob." Hollis finally looked her in the eye, and something flickered. Recognition, maybe guilt. "She must have believed you'd do better than the system. She hated it. Hated how her mom handed her off, how nobody ever fought for her." Megan's voice cracked. "I want to find her. I need to know she's okay." Hollis leaned back. She talked once about a place she'd been as a girl, a bus station in Prescott. Said she used to hide behind the vending machines, pretending she was going somewhere nobody could follow. Maybe she went there. Megan stood. "You have anything of hers? Any clue?" Hollis reached into a drawer and pulled out a photo. It was faded, but Eva's face was clear, eyes tired but determined, baby cradled on her shoulder, standing outside the very trailer Megan was in. On the back, a scribble. "If you find this, I'm trying." Megan pressed the photo to her chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Hollis said. "Just find her before someone else does." As Megan walked back to her car, heart pounding, a dust devil whipped across the yard like the desert was waking up angry. She started the car, hands shaking. She had a new lead now. A town. A story. A girl who'd been running her whole life and finally trusted someone to chase her, not to catch, but to care. "Prescott," she whispered, "I'm coming." And this time, she wouldn't stop until she found the truth. The bus station in Prescott was older than Megan expected, tucked between a shuttered diner and a boarded-up hardware store. It still operated, but just barely. One ticket window, a cracked tile floor, and rows of faded blue plastic seats where ghosts of journeys past seemed to linger in the dust. Megan had called ahead. The clerk on duty said he hadn't seen anyone matching Eva's photo, but agreed to let her look at the security footage from the past few weeks. It was a long shot. She didn't care. She brought Jacob with her this time. It felt wrong to leave him behind, as if he were part of the compass now. He cooed softly from the carrier slung over Megan's chest, his warm little head tucked beneath her chin as she stepped inside. The air smelled of diesel, floor wax, and something distant, like old shoes and worry. The clerk led her to the back room, where a dusty laptop sat beside a stack of outdated bus schedules. "We only save 3 weeks' worth," he warned. And it ain't in HD or anything. Megan nodded. I'll take anything. The first hour showed nothing but drifters and day travelers, men with backpacks, women holding toddlers, teenagers with earbuds and haunted eyes. Then, at timestamp 11:34 p.m. 2 nights ago, the camera caught a flash of movement near the vending machines. A girl stepped into frame. Young. Thin. Short brown hair tucked under a hoodie. She moved like someone trying to disappear. But Megan recognized the slope of her shoulders instantly. Eva. Her heart jumped. Eva stood there for almost 20 minutes, pretending to read the soda labels, checking the door, then crouching down behind the candy machine like she used to when she was little. Just like Hollis said. Megan leaned forward. In the footage, a woman entered, a cleaning staff member. She said something to Eva. Eva nodded, stood, and walked toward the back exit. That was it. Gone again. Do you know her? The clerk asked. Megan nodded. She's the baby's mother. The clerk looked at Jacob. She okay? Megan sighed. I hope so. Do you have a list of buses that left around that time? He handed her a departure sheet. One outbound to Flagstaff, one to Phoenix, one to a town called Pinetop. Megan traced her finger along the Pinetop listing. It was remote, quiet, the kind of place someone might go to vanish on purpose. Did anyone buy a ticket in cash around 11:40 that night? The clerk checked. 1. Single ticket to Pinetop. Woman, paid with a 5 and exact change. Can you describe her? Couldn't tell you anything useful. Hoodie, face down, but she had a scar on her left hand. Long one across the knuckles. Megan closed her eyes. Ava had that scar. Got it from a broken beer bottle at the shelter when she tried to help another woman calm down. Megan had bandaged it herself. That was her. The clerk looked at her. If she didn't want to be found, why are you trying so hard? Megan looked down at Jacob, whose sleepy eyes met hers for a brief moment. Because someone has to. Because she trusted me. She called Deanna as soon as she stepped outside. I found her, she said. Not directly, but I'm close. She took a bus to Pinetop 2 nights ago, alone. Any idea what she's doing there? Number, but I'm going. Deanna hesitated. You know, we're still processing your guardianship petition. Traveling out of county complicates things. I'm not running, Megan said. I'll stay in touch. I'll take every call. But if Eva is scared and hiding, she needs to see a familiar face. She needs to know she wasn't wrong to trust someone. Deanna exhaled. Okay, but please be careful. If you find her, don't confront. Call me. Let us do it right. Megan agreed. But in her heart, she already knew. If she saw Eva, there would be no time for slow bureaucracy. The girl had handed off her child in desperation, not calculation. That meant she was either planning something dangerous or being hunted. And if either was true, Megan wouldn't wait behind red tape. She stopped at a rest station outside town to buy diapers, formula, and a pre-packaged salad she'd probably forget to eat. Jacob fussed briefly, then quieted when she whispered his name, her voice low and certain. We're going to find her. We have to. She fed him in the back seat under the shade of a tree and studied the bus routes from Pinetop. If Eva kept running, she might already be gone again. But Megan had a feeling. Something told her Eva had stayed, that she was waiting for a sign the world hadn't abandoned her completely. Megan would be that sign. She got back in the car and turned onto the highway with Jacob fast asleep, her eyes fixed ahead. For the first time in years, she felt completely sure of her next step. Love wasn't always loud. Sometimes it arrived on a doorstep. Sometimes it followed a breadcrumb trail across half the state. And sometimes it walked right into a storm for someone who couldn't run anymore. The motel sign flickered weakly against the pine trees. Sunview Lodge, weekly rates available, half the bulbs out, the rest buzzing like dying fireflies. Pinetop was colder than Megan expected, the kind of mountain air that wrapped around your ribs and made you question every choice that brought you to the edge of something new. She parked the car near the office, heart pounding as Jacob snuffled gently in the back seat, bundled in his soft blue blanket. This was the only place within walking distance of the bus stop. If Ava was here, if she had stayed anywhere, it would be this motel. She stepped into the front office, and a bell above the door chimed softly. A man in his early 50s looked up from a paperback mystery novel. He wore a flannel shirt, had a pencil tucked behind one ear, and eyes that had seen enough lost souls to know when one walked in. Megan gave a tentative smile. "Hi, I'm looking for someone who might have checked in 2 nights ago. Young woman, traveling alone, short brown hair, maybe wearing a hoodie, paid in cash." The man didn't blink. "Room 4. Megan's breath caught. "She's still here?" "Nope," he said, setting down his book. "Checked out this morning. Left early. Quiet. Barely made a sound." Megan nodded slowly. "Did she say anything?" "Not much. Asked if we had Wi-Fi. Said she'd only be a night. Didn't take the free breakfast." "Was she okay?" The man sighed. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, carried herself like she was made of glass, but glass that remembered being steel once. "You know the type?" Megan nodded. "She leave anything?" "Just this." He reached beneath the counter and held out a small paperback novel with a folded piece of paper sticking out like a bookmark. Megan opened it. Inside, scribbled in a shaky hand, "If anyone comes looking, tell them I'm not lost, just waiting to feel like a person again. Don't let them stop for me unless they really mean it." Megan closed her eyes, pressing the paper to her chest. "Did she say where she was going?" The clerk hesitated, then looked at Jacob through the window. "That your baby?" Megan nodded. "She left him with me." "Then I guess she meant you to have this." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a key. "Cabin. 10 miles outside town. Not on any map. Belonged to my sister before she passed. She let people stay when they had nowhere else. Eva asked about it. I gave her the key." Megan's hands trembled as she took it. "Why didn't you say so right away?" "Because not everyone comes looking with the right intentions. But she left a name. Said if a woman named Megan showed up, it meant the world didn't give up on her yet." Megan's knees went weak. She clutched the edge of the desk to steady herself. "Do you have directions?" The clerk scribbled on the back of a receipt. "Road's rough. Might need to walk the last quarter mile. But you'll find her if she's still there." Megan left with the directions, the paperback, and a heart that felt both heavier and clearer than it had in years. Back in the car, Jacob stirred. She leaned in, pressing her forehead gently to his. "We're close, little one. So close." The road turned to gravel, then to packed dirt. Trees pressed in on either side, tall and silent like sentinels. She followed the hand-drawn map until the car couldn't go farther, then strapped Jacob to her chest and continued on foot. Her shoes crunched over fallen needles and roots. The path narrowed, then opened. A small, weather-worn cabin stood in the clearing, surrounded by silence so complete it felt sacred. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. Megan stepped forward and raised her hand to knock, then froze. The door creaked open from the inside. And there stood Ava. Pale, thinner than Megan remembered, eyes rimmed in sleepless bruises. But alert. Present. Her gaze dropped instantly to the baby. Her breath caught. "Jacob." Megan didn't speak. She just waited. Let Eva have the moment. The girl took one step forward, then another. Her hands fluttered like they didn't know where to go, then reached out, barely grazing the baby's cheek. Jacob blinked, then yawned. And Megan saw it. How Eva's shoulders dropped, how her knees nearly buckled, how something inside her unclenched like a fist that had been tight for too long. "He's okay," Megan said softly. "He's safe." Eva nodded, eyes full of tears that didn't fall. "I didn't know if I'd ever get to see him again." "You left him with love," Megan whispered. "That matters." Eva looked up. "You came all this way." "Because someone had to." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the trees. Eva opened the door wider. "Come in," she said. "Please. It's cold." Megan stepped inside, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like beginning. The cabin was small but warm. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting flickering shadows on the bare wood walls. A single mattress lay on the floor beside a pile of clothes, folded neatly, a chipped mug beside it filled with weak tea. Eva moved like someone still learning to trust gravity, every step tentative, like the floor might vanish. Megan sat in a worn armchair with Jacob still cradled against her chest, while Eva perched on the edge of the mattress, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater. "I didn't know if you'd come," Eva said quietly. Megan's voice was soft. "You left a note that said I was the only one you trusted. How could I not?" Eva gave a bitter smile. "Trust and hope feel like things I borrowed from someone else. Someone braver than me." "You were brave the moment you knocked on my door," Megan said, "and you were braver still to walk away, to protect him." The silence settled again, but this time it held space instead of shame. Then Eva spoke, eyes fixed on the dancing flames. "Luther wasn't my stepdad. Not really. He was my mom's boyfriend, off and on for years. But he acted like he owned everything. Her, the trailer, me. She let it happen because she said he paid the rent, said it was just easier." Megan's stomach tightened. She didn't ask questions, just listened. "When I got pregnant, I didn't even tell her for weeks," Eva continued. "I thought maybe she'd care. But she just looked at me like I'd stolen something, said I'd better figure it out before Luther did." "Did he?" Megan swallowed. "Was he the father?" Eva shook her head fast, as if that particular nightmare was one she could at least reject. "Number I was 17, and the boy I thought I loved took off the minute I missed my first period. Typical. But Luther, he got weird, said a baby would mess everything up, that I couldn't stay there unless I fixed it." Megan felt heat rise in her throat. "So you ran." "I waited until he passed out drunk and I walked out the back door, slept behind dumpsters for 2 nights before the shelter took me in." She glanced at Jacob. "They helped, they really did. But when he was born, I didn't feel ready. And then someone told me Luther had been spotted near the shelter, asking questions." Megan stiffened. "So he was looking for you?" Eva nodded. "I panicked. I remembered your voice at the shelter, how you looked at me like I mattered. You were kind. I wrote your name down once during intake, then scratched it out because I was afraid they'd trace it back to you." "That's why Deanna remembered it," Megan murmured. "I knew I had to keep Jacob safe, so I wrapped him up, left the note, and prayed." Eva's voice broke. "I didn't want to leave him. I just didn't want Luther to ever find him." Megan leaned forward. "He hasn't, and he won't. I made sure of it." Eva looked up, hope flickering like the fire. "You really filed for guardianship?" "Yes. But if you're ready, and if you want, there's another way." Megan reached into her coat pocket and held out a folded set of documents. "Deanna helped prepare these. They're the first step to reclaiming custody legally. But you'll need to stay somewhere stable, get support, and show up for every hearing. Eva's fingers trembled as she touched the papers. You'd help me do that? You trusted me with him, Megan said, her voice cracking. Now let me trust you back. Eva looked down at Jacob, who stirred in his sleep and made a soft gurgle. Her eyes filled. He has my chin. And your eyes, Megan whispered. He's beautiful. A tear slid down Eva's cheek. Do you think he'll forgive me for giving him away? He never stopped being yours, Megan said. You didn't abandon him. You saved him. For a long moment, Eva didn't move. Then she reached out, slowly, reverently, and touched Jacob's hand. He gripped her finger in his sleep, and something broke open in her. A sob tore from her chest, and Megan moved without thinking. She wrapped her arms around the girl, careful not to disturb the baby between them. Eva clung to her, crying like someone who'd held her breath too long and finally remembered how to exhale. They sat like that for a while, mother, almost mother, and child, in the stillness of a place that had only known solitude. And Megan knew, deep in her bones, that whatever came next, they would face it together. Because family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was trust left on a doorstep. They spent the night in the cabin, all three of them nestled into something that almost felt like peace. Megan slept in the armchair with Jacob on her chest, while Eva took the mattress, curled on her side, facing them, as if afraid the morning might erase what little had been rebuilt. But the dawn didn't bring erasure. It brought a quiet kind of clarity. The sun cut through the thin curtains and painted golden lines across the floor. Jacob stirred first, then Eva, who watched him stretch and blink like he belonged there, like the fear she carried had finally loosened its grip. Megan made instant coffee over the propane stove, her hands steady for the first time in days. Eva joined her, brushing her hair back with fingers that trembled less than they had the night before. I want to do it, she said softly. The papers, the process, whatever it takes. I want him back. Megan nodded. Then we'll do it together. No more hiding. Eva smiled, and it was the first real smile Megan had seen from her. Not cautious, not apologetic, just young and alive. They packed up slowly, taking only what they needed, ready to leave the wilderness behind. But just as Megan was latching Jacob's car seat into place, a sound cracked through the stillness. A sharp knock on the cabin door, 3 firm raps, not friendly, not expected. Megan and Eva locked eyes. Megan moved fast, stepping between the door and Eva, pressing a finger to her lips. She whispered, "Take Jacob and go to the back room. Lock it. Don't come out unless I call." Eva obeyed without a word, scooping Jacob into her arms and vanishing down the hallway. Megan opened the door only halfway, heart thudding in her throat. A man stood on the porch. Tall, broad, wearing a weathered leather jacket and boots caked in red dust. His face was sunburned, stubbled, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. "Can I help you?" Megan asked, voice calm but tight. "Looking for someone," he said. "Girl named Eva. Heard she was seen in town." Megan's blood ran cold. "I don't know anyone by that name." "Strange. Motel clerk gave me this address. Said a woman came asking questions." He held up a photo. It was Megan, standing beside her car at the motel, captured on a grainy outdoor cam. The man lowered the photo. "You her?" "I think you've got the wrong place," she said. "There's no one here but me and my son." His head tilted slightly. "Mind if I take a look around?" "I do mind. This is private property." "You alone out here?" Megan folded her arms. "My husband's inside with the baby." A lie, delivered steady. He's cleaning his shotgun. A flicker of calculation passed across the man's face. He stepped back just a little. You be careful out here. A lot of strange folks in these woods. Megan didn't flinch. Thanks for the warning. The man turned and walked slowly back to his truck. A dented gray Ford parked at the edge of the trees. He didn't peel off. Just sat behind the wheel, engine idling, watching. Megan shut the door and locked it, then rushed to the back room. Eva stood by the window, white as a sheet. Was it him? She whispered. Megan nodded. I don't know his name, but I think it was. Eva's breath shook. He won't stop. He never does. Then we go now, Megan said. We call Deanna on the way. We tell her everything. No more running. They packed the car in 10 minutes. Megan drove, Eva in the back with Jacob held tight against her chest. As they pulled out, the truck didn't follow immediately, but Megan saw the dust rise behind them in the rearview mirror. She pressed harder on the gas, gripping the wheel with white-knuckled focus. If he chases us, Eva began. He won't, Megan said. We're not alone anymore, and I'm not scared of him. By the time they reached the main road, the truck was gone. Disappeared like a shadow. But the fear it left behind clung to all three of them. Megan handed her phone to Eva. Call Deanna. Tell her everything. Today we stop hiding. Today we fight back. Eva nodded, her hands steady now as she dialed. Megan drove on, her jaw set, heart racing. Not from fear, but from something else. Resolve. They weren't just running anymore. They were returning. And this time, they'd face the past on their own terms. The courtroom was colder than it needed to be. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and everything smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Megan sat at the front of the gallery in a navy blue blazer she hadn't worn in years, her hands folded in her lap. On her left sat Eva, her hair neatly pinned back, fingers twitching against the edge of her skirt. And between them, in a baby carrier cradled gently on the bench, Jacob slept, oblivious to the weight the moment carried. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She called the docket. Case 117. Petition for maternal custody reinstatement. Eva's name. Jacob's full name. Megan as the temporary guardian. Deanna sat behind them, nodding as if to say, You made it. You're here. Now let's finish this. The judge looked over her glasses. Miss Caro, you are petitioning for reinstatement of full custody of the minor child, Jacob, previously surrendered without formal termination of rights. Is that correct? Eva stood. Her voice barely carried at first. Yes, Your Honor. And Miss Landry? The judge said, turning to Megan. You've acted as legal guardian since the child was left in your care? Yes, Your Honor. And you support the petitioner's request? Megan took a breath. I do. I've seen her fight for him. I've seen her come back. The judge nodded. Then let's get this on record. What followed was an hour of questions. Eva recounted everything, how she fled an unsafe home, how she believed she was protecting Jacob by placing him in Megan's care, how she feared being found by someone who had once harmed her. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She stood like someone who had been through the fire and no longer feared the smoke. Megan spoke, too. About the morning she found Jacob, about the journey to track Eva down, about the motel clerk, the cabin, the knock. The judge listened without expression, scribbling notes in longhand. Do you believe she is capable of raising her son safely and responsibly? She asked Megan. Megan nodded. With every fiber of my being. And Miss Caro, the judge said finally, are you prepared to step into motherhood fully, without running, without fear, with the understanding that everything you do from here on must be about this child and his future? Ava's voice didn't waver. Yes, Your Honor. I'm ready. I want him to know I didn't give up. I want him to know I came back. The judge leaned back. Silence filled the room like breath being held. Then she looked at Deanna. I trust your assessment? Completely, Deanna replied. Then I'm satisfied, the judge said. Custody reinstated, with the condition that Miss Landry remain a designated support guardian for a period of 1 year. Eva's eyes filled with tears. Megan reached over and took her hand. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Outside, the sun was high. The wind had calmed. They stepped out onto the courthouse steps together, Jacob blinking at the light. Eva lifted him from the carrier and held him against her chest. He cooed softly, and for the first time, she didn't look afraid of his fragility. She looked like a mother. Megan watched them with a heart that ached and healed all at once. You did it, she whispered. Eva turned to her. I couldn't have without you. You would have, Megan said. You just needed someone to remind you that you could. They walked down the courthouse steps slowly, hand in hand, Jacob between them. Megan didn't know what tomorrow held, but she knew this much. The girl who had knocked on her door in the gray dawn and left behind a baby was not the same girl walking beside her now. This girl had returned. This girl had chosen not to run. This girl had rewritten the story. And in doing so, she'd saved not only herself, but the child who now giggled in her arms. The world hadn't given up on her, and neither had Megan. Please like, share, and subscribe to support more true-hearted stories on General Common Tales. If a baby had been left at your door, would you have opened your arms or walked away? Tell us in the comments.